Mr. Speaker.
Let us pray. O Lord, grant us a daily awareness of the precious gift of life which you have given us. As members of this legislative assembly, we dedicate our lives anew to the service of our province and our country. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills. Tabling returns and reports.
The Minister of Public Works, Supply and Services.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to table the annual report for 1987-88 of the Department of Public Works, Supply and Services.
Edmonton Centre.
Speaker, I'd like to file with the Assembly 4 copies of the report I referred to yesterday, Caring for People with HIV Infection AIDS, report of the Department of Health.
Additional.
Introduction of special guests.
Minister of Economic Development and Trade, followed by the Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure, sir, to introduce to you and through you to members of the Legislative Assembly a very dear friend from the province of Ontario. This lady served with the Right Honourable Mr. John Diefenbaker and served as my principal secretary for the 12 years that I was in Ottawa. And I would ask if Margaret Garrett would rise so that she could receive the warm welcome of this Legislative Assembly.
Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, it is my pleasure today to introduce to you and to members of the Assembly Mr. William Hassell and his wife Sue Hassell. Mr. Hassell is a member of the Parliament of Western Australia, and in his current role as Shadow Minister for Health and Protection of Human Rights, he is interested in reviewing Alberta's medical and health system, our legal and prosecution structure. I had a very interesting few minutes, although not long enough, with Mr. Hassell and Sue Hassell. I would ask them to stand. They are seated in the members' gallery and receive a very warm welcome from our Assembly.
Pincher Creek Crow's Nest, followed by the Minister of Culture, Multiculturalism.
Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you and through you to the members of the Assembly seven members of the Pincher Creek Pathfinders. They are visiting Edmonton as part of their summer camp. They are accompanied by Miss Dorothy Boris, the Commissioner for the Pincher Creek District. They're seated in the public gallery, and I ask them to rise and receive the warm welcome of the members of the Assembly.
Order, please, in the gallery. It's inappropriate for clapping. Thank you. Minister of Culture, Multiculturalism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure today to introduce to you and through you to the members of the Assembly 10 people here from the group called Sport for Understanding, including 7 from the nation of Holland. Included with the group are their leader, Mr. Lance Adamson, and the Dutch coach, try to say that fast, Frans Jenniskens. And I'd ask them to rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Member for Edmonton Kingsway.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure today to introduce to you and through you to this Assembly 11 students of an English as a second language class from the Alberta Vocational Centre. They're seated in the public gallery, and their teacher with them is Mr. Yuri Drumarecki. I would request that they stand and receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Mr. Speaker, to the Treasurer,
Mr. Speaker, when it was revealed that the Treasury branches had loaned Peter Pocklington the entire purchase price of Palm Dairies, the superintendent of Treasury branches at the time said that ministerial approval was not needed for the loan, but he had thought that he had told Mr. Johnson. Mr. Speaker, later on, a couple days later, to get the story straight, he says the treasurer can't recall me doing so, so I must not have done it, Mr. Speaker. We wondered about, at the time, how much treasurer was using his influence, Mr. Speaker, but more importantly than that, the Treasury Branch Act allows the minister to delegate his authority to the superintendent, but nowhere, Mr. Speaker, absolutely nowhere, does it say that the treasurer cannot know what the superintendent is doing. Mr. Speaker, since yesterday, we hope the treasurer is now on the top of his job, Mr. Speaker. My question is, can the treasurer tell us now if there are plans by the Treasury branch to extend a third mortgage to West Edmonton Mall?
Mr. Speaker, I think yesterday during question period I outlined the policy in which the government follows, and that is that we would not be involved with those kinds of commercial decisions. To be absolutely consistent, Mr. Speaker, I have done nothing further than that I know that, in fact, have not informed myself further, and therefore I can't add any more because, of course, to be consistent, we'd have to keep at arm's length with respect to those kinds of decisions. But let me make it very clear, though, that when a decision is made to invest or to provide money in a loan form, obviously the fundamental characteristic of the entity must be weighed, and I'm not pointing to this particular one, but in most cases, you would look at the value of the assets, which would secure the mortgage, first, second, or third, and certainly that decision would be incumbent upon the cash flow. Is there enough money today and in the forecast period ahead to retire the debt? Those are the two fundamental questions which are asked, and I must assume, because if, as the member says, there's going to be an advance made by Treasury branches to the 555 Corporation, that the company satisfies those tests.
Mr. Speaker, I'm just asking the minister to go back and accept his responsibility. This is not a $1,000 loan to Mrs. Jones. Could be potentially a $50 million third mortgage, Mr. Speaker. But my question is this. Is it not true that the mortgage is part of a refinancing package that will replace a $290 million deal that the Treasury branches joined in 1985? But that our status, and this is a serious matter, Mr. Speaker, that our status is going to go from a callable loan to a third mortgage. And I want to know from the Treasurer, what kind of lending practice is this?
Well, Mr. Speaker, if I had that information, or if I felt that I was responsible to get that information, then of course I had provided the data if I had it to the minister, to the member, Mr. Speaker. What I can say, however, is we practice the very simple principle that credit decisions are made by the Treasury branch. We do not want to interfere with their decisions, and if we did, it would be a myriad of second-guessing what the investment officers were doing. And that just isn't appropriate, Mr. Speaker. I can assure the Assembly and assure all members in Alberta that, in fact, full recourse will be taken to protect the investment, that, in fact, their decision has been very good with respect to many major loans in the past, and this institution now is probably the second largest banking institution in Alberta. That in itself must be a measure of the judgment of the people who make these kinds of decisions.
Mr. Speaker, in this case, ignorance is not bliss.
That's right.
The Treasurer is responsible under this Act, Mr. Speaker. And my question is, because there are already $142 million in debt, and the possibility if they make some other risky loans, the taxpayers are ultimately responsible, will the Treasurer at least today have an all-party committee that would begin to look into the lending practices of the Treasury branches and see what the rhyme or reason is for these things?
Well, Mr. Speaker, first of all, in terms of what I have done, I can assure the members of the Assembly that over the past year, there has been a fairly extensive review as to the way in which the Treasury branches operate. Along with the member from Norwood, I also am concerned about the size of the losses which Treasury branch experienced. He references $140 million. Those are the accumulated losses which this company has faced. Obviously, as a responsible government, we're concerned about that, and we have taken some steps to ensure the following. That, in fact, there is a possibility that we will be able to work our way out of this problem. Secondly, there may be some need to restructure the Treasury branches because, along with other financial institutions, significant losses were experienced in Alberta since 1986. But specifically to the member's question, Mr. Speaker, we have, in fact, undertaken a review of the loan process. We find that the loans essentially, as disclosed in the financial statements, are in very good shape. And so, Mr. Speaker, what you must conclude is that the member, for some reason, is suggesting there's something wrong with the loan. That, in fact, has not been proven, Mr. Speaker, and therefore I must rely upon the judgment of those people in the Treasury branch of the credit system who come to their own conclusions without interference from the government, and that's the appropriate way in which a financial institution should be operated.
Second main question, Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to designate my second question to the member from Edmonton Belmont.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, today a number of striking Ziedler workers attempted to meet with the Minister of Labour because for over 3 years their employer has refused to bargain with them in good faith. Rather than meet with these workers, the minister's staff called security, who threatened to arrest them, told them that they would be convicted, and suggested that they would spend the night in jail. Mr. Speaker, we've become accustomed to jackboot activities on picket lines in our province, but quite frankly, we're disgusted that this kind of action would be extended to the legislature. My question to the minister is this: are workers to expect this kind of treatment when they come to the legislature to address the Minister of Labour in matters involving labor disputes?
Mr. Speaker, some 2 months ago, and at our mutual request, I met with the union representative for the employees that we're discussing, and we explored the issues thoroughly and agreed that we would hope that both sides would come to the bargaining table as soon as possible. This morning I was out of my office on other business as had been prearranged, and without warning, without any advance telephone call, without any warning whatsoever, 5 employees of Ziedler arrived at my office and proceeded to demand a meeting. When my staff pointed out to them that there was totally no expectation of this, because of course we had not been asked for a meeting, and suggested that we would attempt immediately to set up a meeting with them and their union representative, the 5 people, I'm informed, refused to leave. They were politely requested to leave, and they were politely asked for some time to arrange a meeting as soon as my schedule would allow. Nevertheless, they refused to leave. Sitting in a person's office, having been dealt with courteously, and refusing to budge, it seems to me, is not an option, notwithstanding that my office always maintains an open door policy. And indeed, we are, even as I speak now, setting up a meeting within a week to meet with these members of the employees of Ziedler's.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The problem has been is that 2 months have gone by and nothing has been done to get the negotiators back to the table. And under the Act, the minister has the authority to make instructions to the board to get these people back to the bargaining table. Is the minister prepared to commit today to take some kind of action and show some kind of leadership and get the negotiators from all parties back to the negotiation table?
Mr. Speaker, there is an outstanding issue between management and the union at Ziedler's, and it has to do with the fairness or lack of fairness of bargaining practices. That issue has been in front of the Labor Relations Board, and in fact the hearings have taken place. We are all now waiting for the board's decision in that matter, and we've all been eagerly awaiting that. I think it would only be appropriate for the board to make its decision before we proceed any further.
They were found guilty. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given that the previous Minister of Labour offered Bill 21 as a vehicle to reduce time lost due to industrial disputes and further facilitate bargaining in good faith, will the minister now admit that this legislation is a complete failure and in dire need of amendment?
And Mr. Speaker, let me make 2 points. The first one is that this strike began before the new labor code was proclaimed, and therefore, in fact, the rules that are governing the collective bargaining process and all of the procedures around it are, in fact, governed under the old act and not under the new code. Secondly, I don't think that we should lose sight of what is the true goal here. And the true goal, of course, is for the parties to come to an agreement between themselves that is fair and reasonable to both sides. The strike has gone on an incredibly long time. I have urged both sides to come back to the table and settle it. We are now all waiting, as I said, eagerly for the board's decision. But let me say to this assembly and through this assembly to the two sides in this dispute that I would urge them to come together and bargain fairly and decently as soon as possible.
Member for Edmonton Glengarry, Leader of the Liberal Party.
Mr. Speaker, the leadership of the Lubicon Band was democratically decided just a few months ago. The Premier has been lauded, and lauded by many Albertans for the action that he's taken, for the promises that he's made with respect to assisting in the settlement of that land claims issue for Lubicon. Mr. Speaker, the federal government has engaged in some extraordinary activity in that recently they've indicated that they're prepared to open discussions with a so-called radical group or part of the Lubicon group for a settlement of the land claims issues. Alarmingly, Mr. Speaker, one of the ministers of our own government has engaged in that whole issue by indicating that if that happens, lands will be lesser in amount than promised by our Premier, thereby showing that people are working at cross purposes. My question is to the Attorney General. Has the Attorney General, Mr. Speaker, received new instructions from the Premier's office so as to show that you are now siding with Ottawa with respect to this Lubicon issue?
Mr. Speaker, again we start from a misconstrued comment from erroneous detail. We have negotiated, and the Premier is our leader, the agreement known as the Grimshaw Agreement that was based on a certain membership in the Lubicon Band, and that has been put on the table with the federal government, and the negotiations between the Lubicon Band and the federal government ceased back in January. Recently, Chief Omniak approached the Premier to recommence the negotiations. We, as the Alberta government, were more than delighted to recommence our negotiation, which relates really to a few of the details outlining the boundary of the proposed reserve, as well as a few other minor details. We also agreed to ask that the federal government come to the table. I understand that August the 15th, all three parties will be at that table.
Mr. Speaker, is the Attorney General prepared to agree that the recent actions by the federal government are really quite reprehensible, that this action shouldn't be taken by them to split and to divide?
Mr. Speaker, I think that's a matter of opinion.
We're asking for it.
Mr. Speaker, I'm wondering if the Attorney General would agree that the minister, that is, the minister's office, all ministers of the Crown should deal with no one else on this issue except the chief that has been duly elected by the Lubicon Band just 2 months ago.
Mr. Speaker, I fully concur with the honourable member from Glengarry that on a negotiation with the Lubicon Band, that of course the chief, who was recently re-elected to that position, would be the chief spokesman in a negotiation with that band. And we look forward to the recommencing of the negotiations on August the 15th, and hopefully can accommodate them very quickly.
Member for Wainwright, followed by Edmonton Jasper Place, then Calgary McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Solicitor General. Teenage liquor-related accidents and fatalities have been devastating the past few years, and this problem continues to grow. And it wastes many lives, and it costs our healthcare system a lot of money. Alberta now appears to be an island of our own in regards to the drinking age,
as it is lower than that of BC, lower than that of Montana, and lower than that of Saskatchewan. When will we move to get in line with our neighbors?
Mr. Speaker, the member raises an extremely difficult question, and there is no simple answer to this specific question. And when we are speaking about a change in drinking age, we are speaking about removing rights that already have been given to a group of people, which right starts when they reach the age of majority. And as I've indicated, it's a very difficult question to come to grips with.
Supplementary then, when will he consider undertaking a study on the effects of raising the drinking age?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the need to study, as I indicated in the main question, is self-evident before reaching an easy answer on this. And I wish to advise the Assembly members, the honourable members of the Assembly, Mr. Speaker, that the main agency of Alberta's Alcohol and Drug Abuse Commission is itself opposed to the raising of this particular age limit and have done a number of reports on it, and those would have to be part of any study as well.
Thank you. Does this report then point out any of the heavy costs that are associated with the drinking of our young people?
Not other, Mr. Speaker, than as it related to impaired driving. We have never had the figures available as to the other social costs, and I keep trying to acquire these figures. They're not available in this province, and I have not found a jurisdiction yet where they are available, but we will continue to do so.
Calgary McKnight, followed by Calgary McCall. Edmonton Jasper Place, rather. Calgary McKnight, Calgary McCall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Minister of Forests, Daishow and Alberta Pacific of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife. Daishow and Alberta Pacific have received major concessions in the way of loan guarantees, debentures, grants, etc., etc. The companies have both promised to install paper machines further down in their operations in later phases of the development. Meanwhile, the Department of the Environment is holding discussions with companies in Edmonton and I believe in Whitecourt regarding the installation of a de-inking machine for use in the recycling industry. Doubtless those companies will be asking for concessions too. My question is simply, has the Minister held discussions with the holders of forest management agreements and would-be FMA holders directed towards having those companies establish a recycled paper plant, perhaps in the city of Edmonton, as a trade-off for some of the other concessions that they've received to date?
Mr. Speaker, I've had discussions with each one of the companies with respect to a paper machine attached to their particular projects, and in most cases that is the case. However, on the recycle option, that is one area that we're looking at, not only working with forest companies, but with others.
Mr. Speaker, how does the Minister feel about the fact that Albertans ship out waste paper to be processed elsewhere and will be shipping out raw pulp to be processed elsewhere? Doesn't he agree that the pulp companies should do processing and recycling of paper right here in Alberta?
Mr. Speaker, part of our strategy is not to ship all the raw pulp out of Alberta, and I ask for the support that we can move up with all haste with some of these projects, because attached to them in a timely fashion is a paper machine, particularly the Alberta Pacific project. Each one of those mills is competitive in the world market because of the high quality pulp and paper that they would produce. And of course, in each instance, recycling is an option that they may consider, but won't in all cases fit. We are at present working with companies to assess clearly what the volume of material is available for recycling. Newsprint being one product that can be made into tissues, and that's we have companies now looking at the option of doing that. And along with that comes the very expensive de-inking that's necessary to make sure that that's viable. Magazines and other kinds of papers are more difficult, and we're assessing that to make sure that there's economic viability is there for recycling. We must also remember, too, that we want to make sure that we have the volume here to make a project economically viable. That is something we're not sure of at this point because of the population and the use of newsprint and other paper products. But this minister is, and this government is very, very strong and very favorable to recycling anything because, frankly, we become a throwaway society and we must move to recycle and reuse rather than throw away.
Well, the problem with the economics is the trees are so cheap in Alberta, it's cheaper to make virgin fiber. To the Minister of the Environment, has the Minister held discussions with his colleague in forestry to point out that cheap trees are the enemy of recycling industries so that we don't end up subsidizing recycling industries to compete against his subsidized virgin fiber industries?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as to whether discussions have been held, I haven't held discussions personally in this regard, but perhaps some officials in my department. Yeah, with respect to the whole issue of recycling, I indicated in the House not so long ago that the department is looking at a proposed comprehensive recycling program for Alberta, which would include, I presume, negotiations with people in the pulp and paper industry to establish de-inking plants, to create value added to pulp through recycling, and in due course, and hopefully this year, a report will be submitted outlining that proposal.
Supplement the answer in that to make the comment that we have cheap trees in Alberta is totally inaccurate. We have our forest resource in Alberta is the economics there vis-a-vis the rest of the country and the rest of the world is certainly favorable to them locating here, but they're certainly not cheap. And the one area that we have to recognize fully is that to make recycling of newspapers and other products viable, we need to have the volume. There hasn't been an accurate assessment of whether or not that volume is here to make the economics work, and we're doing that now, Mr. Speaker.
Calgary McKnight, followed by Calgary McCall. Calgary McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Tuesday night, during consideration of the education estimates, the Minister of Education suggested that a procedure already was in place under the student evaluation regulation to deal in an intelligent and forceful manner with students caught cheating. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to quote for you a section of this regulation, which says in part, "The director may make any reasonable decision regarding the student's or applicant's result when dealing with cheaters." My question is to the Minister of Education. How can the minister claim that such a vague and open-ended statement will prevent a recurrence of his department's disgraceful handling of the recent situation in Edmonton?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member has just given partial information, and I would refer her, as I did, to Alberta Regulation 40/89, the Student Evaluation Regulation under the School Act 1988. And the regulation is very lengthy, Mr. Speaker, but if I may just quote from it in part, it says, if a student interferes with the security of the evaluation materials, falsifies the evaluation results, or commits any other act that may result in a student's performance being inaccurately represented, the director may make any reasonable decision regarding the student's result, may bar the student for a period of not exceeding 1 year, withhold the student's official transcript of achievement for a period of time not exceeding 1 year. It's a lengthy number of measures that may be taken, Mr. Speaker. And we have chosen, following a careful evaluation and investigation of the incident surrounding the June 1988 Mathematics 30 diploma exam security breach. Under these circumstances, Mr. Speaker, we believe we have taken the most appropriate and reasonable action in light of what the investigators found.
Mr. Speaker, I have the regulations in front of me as well, and it looks to me as though only one portion, 7.2a, was used by the Minister's Department.
Order, please, honourable member. The Between the questioner and the response, quoting back sections of the Act, it's really inappropriate for question period. Let's just get on with a question that relates to general issues rather than the legal aspects of it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It seems to me, Mr. Speaker, that the regulation is clearly not strong enough to prevent future cheaters from escaping punishment. Will the minister now consider the creation of a special short-term task force to study this problem and make recommendations for a sensible approach to dealing with cheaters?
Mr. Speaker, is the honourable member saying, and I believe she is, that the powers outlined in the regulation, which is to, for instance, to bar the student from an examination for a further year, to withhold the student's transcript, to record the decision on the official transcript, and to take any further action, is she saying that there is not a reasonable array of actions that the director, and in the event that the minister may take in the face of certain facts after a thorough investigation? I'd suggest, Mr. Speaker, that the regulation lays out a comprehensive array of penalties that a student may face in the event that they undertake that kind of unacceptable behavior. And I don't hear the honourable member, nor have I heard her party talk about how reprehensible it is that any students would cheat on an examination. And Mr. Speaker, I feel very strongly that any student that is caught cheating on an examination should suffer the consequences.
Oh yeah.
My third question, Mr. Speaker, is to the Minister of Advanced Education. Has the Minister undertaken any study of post-secondary institutions to determine whether any otherwise deserving Alberta students was denied access to a university education because one of these cheaters got in ahead of them on the basis of false marks?
No, I haven't, Mr. Speaker.
Calgary McCall, followed by Edmonton Beverly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Solicitor General. Through a number of comments and discussions with constituents, both mine and others in the province, I've become somewhat concerned. The Alberta Liquor Control Board has certain outlets that uses sampling as a sales tool for the purchase of wine, beer, coolers, tequila, drinks, etc. And we all know that the alcohol content is certainly in wine is lower than that of spirits, but certainly higher than that of beer. Most people arriving at the liquor outlet do so in a vehicle. We know that a person can spend considerable time tasting a promotional product or tasting various other products. We also know that the government has taken steps to remove drinking drivers from our streets, and the offering of samples would seem a backward step. Would the Solicitor General indicate what policy the ALCB has in supporting the drinking and the driving of a vehicle by people as outlined in my preamble?
No more freestyle. Can't be a freestyle.
Mr. Speaker, the Alberta Liquor Control Board for the last 5 years has operated a tasting and sampling operation in what is now 50 stores throughout the province. And it's difficult for me to imagine that anybody would be trundling down to the local liquor store to try a few drinks. The maximum they can have is a quarter ounce of spirits, a half ounce of wine, or 1 ounce of wine, and 2 ounces of beer. And it is tightly controlled by any store manager. There's only one person allowed to be giving samples at any given time in any given of the 50 stores, and there can only be 2 types of liquor served, any one of the 3, spirit, wine, or beer, cooler, or cider. So it is just not a problem, Mr. Speaker.
According to some, it is a problem, Mr. Speaker. Will the minister be taking any action insofar, or some action insofar as the continuance of the sampling of alcoholic beverages at the government-operated ALC or private outlets?
Mr. Speaker, I think possibly the honourable member is referring to, as well as the Liquor Control Board there, and I now gather he's referring to the private tastings, most often by the representatives of wine companies. I will not be doing anything in respect to the ALCB operations, but I will make inquiries in respect to the private tastings.
Mr. Speaker, just to follow through with the point that the minister has just made, might we expect a review of the current policy, or will there be a review, and will it be made available to the House or the public?
Mr. Speaker, as indicated previously, there will be no review. I see no need for a review into the Alberta Liquor Control Board tasting program. However, I will make inquiries in respect to the private tastings and advise the member accordingly.
Edmonton Beverley, followed by Edmonton Whitemud, then Innisfail.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Reductions in the province's share of education funding have taken place every year since 1975 and have eroded the ability of the Edmonton Public School Board to build new schools. The result of this reduction of support for the school boards has in my constituency over 900 junior high school students, Mr. Speaker. 900 students are transported out of the Clairview Hermitage area on a daily basis. My question is to the Minister of Education. When will this government provide sufficient funding to the Edmonton Public School Board so the board can meet its obligation to providing schools for the junior high school people in Clairview Hermitage?
Mr. Speaker, we fund school construction and modernization and building quality restoration on the basis of a well-known province-wide formula that first of all addresses health and safety matters, and then second of all meets the needs of the schools and the students and the school jurisdictions. And all school boards know the process, and it's up to individual school boards to make sure that their requests, that their priorities are placed high on the list, so that we may fund those projects. But the member knows full well that given some reasonable limitations in our fiscal capacity, this year we have some $85 million to contribute to a total list of $330 million worth of requests. So on the advice of the School Buildings Board, the minister will be making some decisions in the weeks ahead as to which projects are funded, and those announcements will be made, I expect, sometime in the middle of September.
Only 30% funding.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Edmonton School Board has actually been underfunded now for some time. Correct. But while the parents are waiting for the schools to be built, and I'm sure they will be for too long, will the minister at least provide some temporary funding for transportation so that these students can in fact travel in safety, and minister alluded to safety, in safety, so they can use the yellow buses instead of the public transport they have to use now.
Mr. Speaker, I find it unusual that the honourable member would say that the Edmonton public or Catholic school boards would be underfunded. This year, the funding for the school year beginning September 1, 1989, will see an increase in the province's total contribution from $179.3 million in 1988-89 to $188.2 million in this year. And part of that grant, Mr. Speaker, is the Transportation and Boarding Grant, which is some $4.4 million last year and some $4.65 million in 1989-90. And Mr. Speaker, all children, all students who must be transported by bus within the city of Edmonton, that funding is provided partially according to a formula, but they get full maximum funding for the transportation of those students out of neighborhoods where schools do not now exist. But I go back to the honourable member's question, his first question. It is up to the local school board to set the priorities as to where new schools ought to be constructed. And as far as if I can recollect, Mr. Speaker, the school that the honourable member is referring to was placed number 5 or 6 on this year's list submitted by the Edmonton Public Board.
Right.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the Edmonton Public School Board only receives 9.2% of the funding when they have 16% of the students.
It's not fair.
And that's not fair. Will the minister restore provincial funding for education to its previous levels, that is to 1975, to allow the Edmonton Public School Board and the other school boards in this province to meet their school construction commitments without further delay?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member and his colleagues in both the NDP and Liberal Party raised this issue in our discussion of the estimates of the Department of Education on Tuesday night. And if I can just explain what the honourable member's position means. It means that he wants to have a fixed set formula for funding education throughout the province, perhaps on an 80-20 or an 85-15 basis. What does that mean, Mr. Speaker? It means that he's demanding this government to control the decisions and the expenditures, but the important decisions that are made by locally elected school boards. We have faith, we have trust in what those locally elected school boards, what they do and the decisions they make, Mr. Speaker. The honourable members across the way, that is their position, patently clear. They do not support or believe in the locally elected school.
Edmonton Whitemud.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, at the present time, the Motor Vehicles Administration Act clearly states that mailing out a notice of suspension or cancellation of an operator's license by registered mail to his last recorded address is sufficiently served on that person. A recent court decision established a major flaw in this process. It appears that drivers can simply avoid suspension by changing addresses. Mr. Speaker, possibly thousands of motorists could be in this situation in the province, avoiding the penalty of suspension and at the same time posing a serious threat to public safety in regards to victims of uninsured drivers. My question, Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Transportation: can the Minister inform this House just how often the initial attempt to serve notification is unsuccessful, thus allowing the suspended drivers to continue driving?
Mr. Speaker, the Motor Vehicle Administration Act comes under the Department of the Solicitor General, and this is making a specific reference to a specific case this week. And I have ordered a copy of that transcript in order that I can review it in order to see whether any legislation change is necessary or not.
Mr. Speaker, what steps are being taken at the present time to ensure that people who are under suspension are held accountable when initial efforts to serve notice have been successful? What steps prior to that review?
Prior to yesterday or the day before, whenever this case was heard that's being referred to, the steps that were being taken were a notification to the RCMP or city police or municipal force, as the case may be, to pick up the driver's license if and when we had difficulty in advising through registered mail.
Mr. Speaker, would the Minister state, would the Solicitor General state, if he is prepared after the review to consider those necessary changes to the Motor Vehicle Administration Act, or is the Minister prepared to recommend to his colleagues, to the Attorney General, that an appeal of Judge Murray's decision be undertaken?
I can make no comment in respect to the appeal of the case that was heard this week, but depending upon the transcript that we receive and reading of that transcript, our action will depend upon that reading, Mr. Speaker.
Innisfail, followed by Calgary Forest Lawn.
Mr. Speaker, on the Tuesday afternoon, we discussed motion 208 in regards to landfill operations. The member from Edmonton Meadowlark suggested that there are no assurance whatever that the site for landfill at Pine Lake had been properly assessed. My question to the Minister of Environment: can the Minister outline his department's role in assisting the Central Alberta Regional Waste Authority in locating and in developing a regional landfill site?
Mr. Speaker, this is a very difficult situation. It brings to the forefront that age-old phenomena of NIMBY, not in my backyard. And basically, the department provides technical and monetary assistance to regional landfill authorities, and it is up to that authority to work with the appropriate municipal jurisdiction to determine where the site will actually go. Our department will go in and make sure that a site is environmentally safe. And once that has been determined, we'll pass that information on to the municipal jurisdiction. But it is entirely up to the municipal jurisdiction because they are the people who will be using the site. They're the people who will be living with the site. It is up to the municipal jurisdiction to make the final decision.
How extensive was the soil testing for reviewing the potential site at this landfill site?
Well, the soil testing is extensive to the point of ensuring that the site is safe from a hydrological point of view, from a geological point of view, and that there won't be leaching. And basically, the examination of the site in itself is an environmental impact assessment document, because we have to make absolutely sure that the site is safe before we recommend it for selection.
Does the Department of Environment monitor groundwater conditions around regional landfills?
Mr. Speaker, of course, this is one of the most serious issues relative to landfill sites, and monitoring stations are indeed set up around the site, and if leaching is found to be the case, then the department will order the appropriate action to be taken to bring a halt to that process.
Calgary Forest Law.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, 2 Calgary firemen were hospitalized while attempting to clean up a large volume of hazardous waste chemicals which had been illegally dumped into a roadside ditch in southeast Calgary. Thus far, little progress seems to have been made in finding the culprits responsible for this extremely dangerous incident. My question is to the Minister of Environment. What is the status of the investigation into this situation, and when can we expect those responsible to be found and charged?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I would love to be a crystal ball gazer, and I would love to be a detective, and I'd love to be all things to all people, but I can't be. I don't know when these people are going to be caught. I have no idea when they're going to be caught, but I'll tell you, when they are caught, they will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Supplementary, Mr.
Environment Minister.
Well, given that some of these dumped hazardous substances were found in their original labeled containers, will the minister change hazardous chemical regulations to require registration so that these substances can be traced back to where they were purchased and by whom?
I would be very, very happy to work with my honorable colleague, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Public Works, Supply and Service, and perhaps defer to him for further elaboration on this matter.
Oh, right. Go get him, Kitty. Go get him, killer.
Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, in this case, these materials were illegally dumped. Now, the honorable member suggested that a criminal should take a parcel of material and make sure they're properly labeled before he criminally puts them in a ditch, and that just simply is silly, Mr. Speaker.
The materials until they're registered, but in any event,
it's amazing.
Final supplementary, Mr. Speaker. Given that officials in the minister's own department fear more illegal dumping because breaking the law by polluting is cheaper than following regulations for safe disposal, why did the government not anticipate this and require companies to pay an additional deposit when buying chemical containers, which would only be refunded when those containers are refunded for safe disposal or for reuse?
Well, That's an extremely interesting question, Mr. Speaker, and in fact we are doing precisely that. We are doing precisely that, especially with chemical containers. There is a deposit fee, and the people are encouraged to bring those plastic containers and other containers carrying toxic materials to transfer sites throughout the province, and from time to time shredding machines go in and rip it up, and these products are recycled. So in fact it is being done.
Edmonton Meadowlark. Time for question period has expired. May we continue this complete set of questions? Opposed? Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the members of the Government Caucus for being so forthcoming in that regard. Mr. Speaker, there are evident inconsistencies in the Minister of Environment's application of standards and environmental assessment processes for pulp mills in this province. What's good for one mill is not, it seems, Mr. Speaker, necessary for others. Nowhere is this clearer than in the case of the Procter & Gamble proposed expansion. To the Minister of Environment, will the Minister make a commitment now, today, to stop the Procter & Gamble expansion until such time as that company is prepared to meet the higher standards imposed for new pulp mills in this province?
Mr. Speaker, it's not a question of just saying stop the mill. The mill, in fact, is stopped. The mill won't go ahead until it meets all environmental standards, very, very high standards. I find it extremely interesting in the newspaper that the Grand Prairie Pulp Mill bolts at new anti-pollution standards. This is a company that says our standards are so tough, so stringent, that we're going to have a hard time meeting those standards. And certainly those standards will be assessed through the environmental impact assessment process, and they will, like Daishawa, be required to meet them. It's as simple as that.
We're drawing the distinction here, Mr. Speaker, between old and new mills. Will the Minister establish a deadline by which old mills like Procter & Gamble and other existing mills, pulp mills, will have to meet the standards he is now requiring for new mills, as is the case in Sweden, where a deadline of the year 2000 has been established to meet new standards?
Mr. Speaker, in the case of both the Procter & Gamble mill and the mill at Hinton, there are now commitments to refit those mills when the other operations come online, and refit those mills to conform with the new standards.
Why has the Minister deemed it necessary to establish a public review board in the Athabasca case, albeit that this board is extremely weak, when he has refused consistently to establish such a public review board in the case of AEC, the Alberta Energy Company, in Slave Lake, the case of Daishawa, and the case of the Procter & Gamble expansion?
Thank you. One's enough. How many questions? Let's not try the
Mr. Speaker, this very, very strong, well-represented board, review board relative to the LPAC proposal, may set a model and establish a model for other pulp mill projects. May. The principle will certainly be used. The principle will certainly be used, and if we find any deficiencies in that process, it'll be strengthened, much to the satisfaction of the honourable member. With respect to the Alberta Energy Company proposal at Slave Lake, this was a program that wasn't designated by my predecessor as one of those that would undergo the public review process, which involves the citizens panel. The only one that was designated at that time was the Alberta Pacific project, and to fulfill that commitment, the review panel has been set up and is about to begin its work.
Thank you. Time for question period has expired. Orders of the day.
Written